Should you be investing in gold in 2025? That's a question I've been asking myself a lot lately because gold has been on a tear as of late. If you've been paying any attention to the markets recently, you've probably seen that it's up over 50% this year. And that's a pretty big shift from what we normally expect from gold, which is usually seen as the slow and steady inflation hedge, to now it's actually outpacing both the S&P 500 and Bitcoin. So why is gold doing this? Has it always been this way, and will it continue? That's what I want to figure out. So I wanted to dive into the history of gold and kind of explain why it's been valuable for so many thousands of years, and then put that together to decide if it would still hold a place in a long term investor's portfolio moving forward. So, throughout history, gold has always been a prized and valued asset, going all the way back to the ancient Egyptians who stored it with their royalty. And later on, gold would become a currency for a lot of the greatest empires in history, like the Romans under Julius Caesar and the British Empire. And really, gold was the go to currency for most civilizations up until the mid 1900s when the US introduced the Bretton Woods Agreement, which essentially made the US dollar the world reserve currency. And then later in 1971, the gold standard was officially ended. So since then, most governments have been on a fiat standard, and people use gold as a safe haven to try and protect their wealth from the inflation of that fiat currency. So you might be wondering, why does gold even have value? When people look at investments, they usually think about things that produce something, like a company that generates profits or pays out dividends every month. But gold doesn't do either of those. It's really just a metal that doesn't create any cash flow or income. So instead, the value from gold comes from a few intrinsic properties that it's always had. First, gold is durable. It can last forever, and you could bury it for centuries, dig it up, and it'll look almost exactly the same. It doesn't rust, corrode, or get tarnished, something that you really can't say about most other materials humans have used as money, like copper, seashells, or even certain foods. The second property of gold is that it's fungible, which means that 1 ounce of gold is identical to any other ounce of pure gold, no matter where in the world it's found, and that makes it easy to exchange and universally recognized no matter where you go. The third property of gold is that it's divisible. It can be melted, shaped, or broken down into coins, bars, or jewelry without losing any of its value, and that flexibility makes it practical for trade and transactions. And lastly, and maybe the most important thing about gold, is that it's scarce. You can't just create more of it on demand, and extracting gold from the earth takes real labor, time, and money. And that limited supply is what makes it resistant to inflation. Sure, it's mined every year, and the supply does increase every year, but nothing close to the way paper money is printed at will. So, this combination of durability, fungibility, divisibility, and scarcity is what makes gold one of the most trusted stores of value in human history. So, with the fiat standard today, you might be wondering why gold is still important. Well, gold has always held its value, and that's important because in the modern economy, governments can just print money on demand. And gold, on the other hand, is finite and you just can't print it out of thin air. So, to put that into perspective, if you went back to the year 1980 and you had a down payment for a house, but you decided to buy gold instead, if you sold that gold today, you could take the down payment and put that on the same type of house in 2025 that you would have in 1980. So gold is really a protection, and it's a hedge against the debasement of the US dollar or whatever currency you use, and that matters now more than ever because governments have been more and more reckless every year with debt climbing to new record highs. So, if you decide you want to buy gold, there's a couple of ways you can do it, and the simplest way is through an ETF like GLD, and this makes it easy to get exposure to the price of gold just through your brokerage account where you can hold it with your other stocks and ETFs that you might own. And this is the simplest way to get started with gold if you're a beginner. But some people just like to own the physical gold itself, and if you want to do that, you could buy coins or bars. But the downside with physical gold is just that you have to worry about protecting it. Also, you actually have to make sure you're not buying counterfeit gold because that is out there. So, uh, gold's not perfect, but it is a good hedge against inflation, and it's definitely more conservative if you want something that protects you from debasement, but also isn't as risky as something like Bitcoin. So, my point with this is not that you should just take all of your money and dump it into gold. It's simply just to recognize what's happening around us and see that we're living in a world where governments can just print trillions and trillions of dollars and drive inflation higher every year, which is just eating away at the hard earned money that you have. So, gold's not really a get rich quick scheme, and it's not going to deliver the same explosive returns that you might see with something like Bitcoin, but it is an insurance for your money and a good way to preserve its value over time. So, whether it's 5% or 10% of your portfolio, I think that having a small allocation would make sense. And this is simply because over 5,000 years, gold has always been the one thing that's been standing when other civilizations and currencies have fallen to the ground. So, if this helped change the way that you thought about gold, let me know down in the comments, and also let me know if you guys are investing in gold or if you're staying away. And if you like this video, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.